By the time the HOA sent their fourth cease and desist letter, I had already installed the steel-reinforced tollgate at the foot of my mountain. Watching Karen's SUV screech to a halt in front of my brand-new checkpoint while my automated payment screen blinked 75 due for access felt like sipping espresso on the deck of a warship. She slammed her door, heels clacking against the asphalt, red-faced and screaming, "You can't charge us to use this road!" I calmly pointed to the posted legal notice bolted beside the keypad. "This isn't your road anymore." She didn't know I owned the mountain now. And I wasn't just enforcing a toll, I was cashing in on every ounce of their arrogance. Remind me again, who exactly gave them permission to pave through private federal land? They started cutting trees at dawn. The hum of chainsaws echoed across the ridgeline like it was just another Tuesday chore. The sound so absurdly out of place, I thought I was dreaming. It wasn't hunting season. It wasn't logging season. And it damn sure wasn't permitted. I grabbed my boots, slung a thermos of coffee under my arm, and headed up the Western Trail with my blood pressure already boiling. I knew every inch of that mountain. I'd bought it 6 years ago when I retired from active service and decided that peace, real, unreachable, hard-earned peace, was worth every penny. My name's Mark Ellis, and back then, this mountain was mine, all 86 acres of it. I'd bought it directly from a family that had held the deed since the 1880s, land older than barbed wire. I'd hiked it, mapped it, reinforced it with erosion fencing, and treated every inch like sacred ground. No one had a right to touch it. No one. But when I crested the ridge that morning, I saw orange-vested men dragging flagged stakes across my trail, bulldozers already clearing what looked like a primitive path from the southern basin to the upper switchbacks. Right through my property like it didn't even exist. No signs, no warnings, no courtesy knock on my door. Just machines moving earth that didn't belong to them. And at the center of it all was HOA President Carl Densley, a man with a clipboard and a golden retriever smile, sipping a latte like he was supervising a playground project. "What in God's name are you doing?" I asked, stepping directly into the churned dirt. Carl turned like I'd inconvenienced him. "Ah, Mr. Ellis, you're up early." "We're expanding the East Road to provide better access between the lower lots and the Ridgeview sector. Community connectivity, you know. The board approved it unanimously last quarter." I blinked at him. "This is my land." Carl gestured around like he didn't hear me. "There's been a lot of confusion over zoning in this area. Apparently the corridor was misfiled as communal easement back in 2008. But it's all squared away now. We've got the green light. Surveyors, engineers, county signed off." I cut him off. "I never signed off." His smile tightened. Just slightly. "Well, we're past that phase, Mark. The machinery's here. Let's not get bogged down in paperwork. We're all neighbors." Then he turned and started barking orders at the excavator crew like the conversation was over. I stood there stunned, wind slicing across the ridge, the stench of diesel already staining my forest. That first moment, when you realize someone has laid hands on your sanctuary without consent, feels like a betrayal deeper than theft. It's not just the land, it's the silence, the solitude. The years of sweat, equity, and reverence, all reduced to a line item in someone else's development plan. I hiked back down with my fists clenched, boots stomping harder than needed. Inside my cabin I pulled out the original deed. Section 12, Parcel A, Ridgeback Territory. No easements, no shared use. I cross-referenced it with the county's GIS system. And that's when I noticed something was off. My parcel ID was mislinked. The county zoning database listed the lower half of my property, specifically the stretch where they were digging, as Shared Access Corridor 12B, flagged for developmental use by Clearview Estates OA. I printed everything, drove straight to the county clerk's office in town. A young woman named Dana helped me pull physical records. And after 2 hours of waiting and one awkward printer jam, I held a manila folder with 2 contradictory maps, both stamped and filed 15 years ago. One marked the land as private, mine, signed by the original owners. The other, a newer one added 6 months later, showed the same land as an undeveloped communal right-of-way, bearing a completely different signature from the same seller. and a notary stamp that didn't match any registered clerk in the district. A forgery. Sloppy, blatant, but buried under 15 years of bureaucracy. I felt the weight of it sink into my chest. This wasn't an accident. Someone had rewritten the legal identity of my mountain, quietly, fraudulently, and just far enough back that no one would notice until a bulldozer rolled through. I pushed deeper. I found that in 2008, 3 parcels were donated to the HOA as part of a land improvement incentive pushed by a former board member, Michael Densley, Carl's older brother. The zoning change had been presented during a winter board meeting when barely 3 homeowners attended. Public minutes were filed, but the landowners of record were never contacted, and the zoning approvals had passed without verification signatures. It was a shell game, bait and switch at a municipal level, and because the HOA had since restructured under new bylaws and a different president, the fraud was fossilized, present, but hidden behind legal fog and official stamps. My land had been laundered. And I wasn't just mad, I was activated. The next morning, I drove straight to the edge of the construction site with a drone under one arm and a GoPro strapped to my chest. I filmed everything. Workers clearing underbrush, flattening terrain, dragging gravel into the stream bed. I walked straight into their site with the confidence of a man who knows he's right. "This is an unauthorized development on private land," I said, recording every face that turned toward me. One of the engineers, a kid in his 20s, blinked and stammered. "Sir, we've got permits." "Show me," I said. "He didn't have them." Of course he didn't. Carl wasn't there, just a foreman who didn't know the dirt he was desecrating. I handed him a printed copy of my deed, highlighted in orange. "You've got 48 hours to cease operations, or I file for injunction and press criminal trespass charges. Your bulldozers are on private terrain. You're not building a road. You're committing land seizure." I left him holding the paperwork like it might explode. 2 days passed. The machinery didn't move, but neither did they stop. They paused operations for review. Meanwhile, HOA newsletters started circulating about malicious obstruction and anti-community sentiment. The narrative was being spun fast. I found flyers in mailboxes blaming me by name for delaying road upgrades vital to emergency response and neighborhood integration. One post on the HOA's Facebook page read, "Why should one man's ego stop progress for the entire community?" Ego? They'd invaded my mountain with backhoes and forged paperwork. This wasn't ego, this was survival. I reached out to an old friend from my service days, Elliot. Now a real estate attorney with a specialization in land disputes. I showed him everything, the conflicting maps, the mismatched notary stamps, the drone footage, the propaganda. He didn't blink. "This is textbook HOA fraud," he said. "They thought you wouldn't dig. They thought you'd cave once it was paved." He tapped the deed. "But what they've done here, it's actionable. This isn't civil, this is criminal." My jaw tightened. "Good. You want to sue?" "No," I said. "I want to wait. Let them finish what they started." "Excuse me?" "If they pave it, if they touch one more inch, I own the mistake. They build it. I convert it." Elliot narrowed his eyes. "You're not trying to stop them?" "No," I said. "I'm going to charge them." That night, I sat on the porch, map spread across my lap, red pen in hand. I traced the projected route of the HOA's road through my land. I circled choke points, terrain elevation changes, and natural bottlenecks. Then I marked the perimeter of what would soon become the most profitable betrayal this HOA would ever regret. A private road built on stolen land. And every time they drove through it, they'd be paying me interest on their own stupidity. The theft wasn't the end. It was the beginning. And I wasn't angry anymore. I was invested. The deeper I dug, the more rot I found. What started as a forged map and an entitled HOA president quickly unraveled into a full-blown conspiracy years in the making. I wasn't just dealing with one unauthorized road cut through my property. I was standing on top of a mountain threaded with lies, and every lie led back to the same names: Densley, Hargrove, Templeton. All of them were either current or former HOA board members, and all of them had profited off this land in some way that wasn't theirs to claim. I spent 4 straight nights in the basement office of the county records building. Dana, The clerk who'd helped me initially offered me a keycard and a coffee pot. "If you find something illegal," she'd whispered, glancing over her shoulder, "you didn't hear it from me. But you're not the first one to question zoning irregularities on Ridgeback territory." That was all the confirmation I needed. So I began assembling a war map, not of troop positions or enemy fire zones like I had back in my Army days, but a network of transactions, ownership transfers, zoning variances, and forged permissions. And what I found made my blood run cold. It all started in 2008 with something called Corridor Initiative C12. On paper, it looked like a modest land improvement measure to connect lower residential units to emergency fire exits and access lanes. That document was signed by the HOA's then president, Gordon Templeton, and rubber-stamped by County Supervisor Eleanor Park. But the paper trail didn't match the land records. In the original parcel file for the region, Corridor C12 didn't exist. It was created entirely in-house, first in an HOA board meeting, then quietly inserted into the county register by someone with access. That's how they did it. They didn't steal land in the traditional sense. They incepted it, wrote it into existence by layering just enough semi-legal documentation over enough time that no one questioned it anymore. From 2008 to 2016, 3 new maps were filed, each one showing incremental changes to the Ridgeback region. First, a utility access zone, then a fire safety lane. Then finally, a proposed developmental corridor with noted pending easements, most of which were never pursued. But that didn't matter. Once it was on paper, it began shaping perception. And perception, especially in bureaucratic systems, becomes policy. The drone footage I'd taken showed the route perfectly. A 2.1-mile gravel cut running diagonally through my northern acres, connecting the base of the hill to the newly constructed Ridgeview Villas. An upscale cul-de-sac funded and developed by Hargrove Properties, whose CEO just happened to be on the HOA board 2 years ago. I traced campaign contributions and found that Eleanor Park, the county supervisor who approved the initial variance, had received a $20,000 consulting fee from a Shell LLC tied to Hargrove. Suddenly, the forged notary on my parcel swap wasn't a mistake. It was the tip of a land laundering operation. But the most egregious find came from a single, unfiled complaint. In 2012, a neighboring landowner named Patricia Langston had submitted a formal protest against the HOA for attempting to bully her into granting access through her hunting cabin property for road development. The complaint was detailed: dates, names, specific threats. It claimed she was offered a 5-0 cooperation incentive by Gordon Templeton and threatened with continuous noise violations if she refused. But the complaint never made it into the zoning hearing minutes. It had been marked resolved and buried in the complaints archive under noise dispute. Patricia's property had eventually sold a year later for a fraction of its market value. The buyer? Ridgeback Development Associates, LLC. Registered agent, Carl Densley. These people were snakes. And I was now walking through a den filled with rattlers who had long since forgotten what law and land meant. But they also made one fatal mistake. They never expected someone with my background to push back. See, I wasn't just some cranky off-grid landowner with a pickup and a paranoia streak. I was a retired operations analyst for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, with clearance that had once allowed me to monitor infrastructure fraud overseas. I knew how to read subclause language. I knew how to reverse engineer development proposals. And I knew exactly how to track shell corporations through state business databases until you hit flesh and blood names. So I did. I traced every LLC, every falsified easement, and every bank transfer used to buy out opposition. I created a chart with red strings connecting dates, names, land parcels, and funds. And when I was finished, I didn't just have a revenge plan. I had evidence. A 124-page dossier, photos, maps, video, and most damning of all, signed documents from people who no longer worked for the county, but whose names were on every fake approval. I sent it to Elliot. He called me 3 hours later, voice low and sharp. "You have enough here to trigger a state audit. And if this gets in the hands of the feds, wire fraud, falsified real estate documents, zoning manipulation, It's jail time for half your HOA. Good, I said. Let's not go public yet. Let them keep building. Why? Because the moment they break ground on the second switchback, the road officially crosses 2 more private parcels, both of which I now own. I bought them yesterday. Jesus, Mark. That's not all. The second parcel has a deed clause that invalidates any easement over 30 feet wide unless renewed every 5 years. They never renewed it. Once they build, they break that clause, which means not only do I own the land under their road, I own their liability. Elliot was quiet for a moment. What are you planning? I'm going to register the entire stretch as a toll road. You're serious? Dead serious. If they want to use it, they'll pay me. Every single car, every single day. And just like that, the shift happened. My battle wasn't emotional anymore. It was surgical. Precise. I printed signs warning of future toll implementation. I placed orange stakes at measured intervals, citing legal code that only someone with experience would recognize. And every time a board member drove past and saw those stakes, they panicked a little more. HOA President Carl tried to call me. I let it go to voicemail. He sent a formal letter threatening legal action. I sent back a notarized landowner notification reminding him of the 2008 variance fraud, complete with copies of both real and fake maps. He stopped sending letters. But the best part? I started receiving quiet messages, anonymous emails, unlisted phone calls, from former HOA members, even former contractors. They pressured me to approve an invoice I knew was fake. I was told to shut up or I'd be fined into bankruptcy. They bought off the entire zoning committee with dinner vouchers and discount home services. Each tip added another node to my dossier. And the more I gathered, the clearer the picture became. This wasn't one HOA gone rogue. This was systemic rot, rooted in money, greed, and arrogance. But their foundation had cracks, and I was putting pressure on every one of them. I installed a second drone system, one for surveillance, one for backup. I lined my ridge with private property signs that were legal works of art, citing state statutes on trespassing, eminent domain abuse, and land misclassification. And I began consulting with a forensic surveyor to audit every foot of the development. By the time the HOA realized what I was doing, it was too late. The paper trail didn't just prove their fraud, it rewrote the entire ownership structure of the land under their feet. They hadn't built a community shortcut. They'd built me a business. And soon, they'd pay to use it. The moment I stopped thinking like a victim and started thinking like a businessman, everything changed. Retaliation was too small for what they did. I wasn't going to chase them through court for a payout or scream at town hall meetings while they filed motions to delay and obstruct. That's what they were built for. No. I would use the very structure they created, the road they illegally paved through my mountain, and turn it into my own personal gold mine. What they saw as a victory, I saw as a ledger entry, an asset, a revenue stream they unknowingly delivered to my doorstep. And the best part? I wouldn't have to raise my voice once. I called Elliot and said 3 words, time to incorporate. Within 48 hours, we had formed Ridgeback Transit Solutions, LLC. It was registered as a private infrastructure management firm specializing in privately owned access roads across multi-unit residential developments. On paper, it looked like a completely legitimate third-party firm contracted for road operations. Because it was. I owned the road. And now, my LLC did too. I bought 2 more adjoining parcels at the foot of the hill, small strips of land that no one had paid attention to in years, just brush and creek runoff. But they were legally zoned for agricultural service access. With 1 reapplication and a small soil transportation permit, we rezoned both as commercial ingress-egress zones and merged them under Ridgeback Transit's corporate footprint. That gave me the chokehold, the southern access point, where 93% of HOA members entered the ridge. Without that curve, their shortcut to the upper lots was a dead end. And with it, every car passed through my toll system. I didn't use chains or toll booth arms. That would give away too much, too soon. No, I made it smarter, cleaner. I installed buried inductive loop sensors, passive IR motion detectors, and high-grade license plate recognition cameras tied to a cloud server hosted through Ridgeback's secured platform. Every time a vehicle passed through the southern access point, its plate was logged. Date, time, vehicle ID, make, and model. The system matched every car to the state DMV registry and cross, referenced them with the HOA's own publicly available member list, which I'd already scraped. That's how I set up the billing structure, 3.5 per pass, or 65 per month for unlimited use. Commercial vehicles, contractors, maintenance trucks were charged 6.75. I included a built-in discount for verified first responders and city vehicles, because unlike the HOA, I still believed in decency. To the outside world, Ridgeback Transit was a benign infrastructure firm contracted by the landowner to manage wear and tear on an unmaintained rural road. But for the people who had bulldozed through my property and declared it a communal upgrade, it was a sudden and expensive reversal. I even issued the invoices professionally. PDF summaries emailed directly to each homeowner on file, with breakdowns showing usage, time of day differentials, and an invitation to register for a monthly discount plan. Effective immediately, the invoice read, "Your usage of the Ridgeback access corridor now falls under private maintenance jurisdiction and incurs a minor access fee to maintain road integrity and environmental mitigation compliance." I included copies of my updated zoning approval, the business registration for Ridgeback Transit, and a polite footnote that said, "Inquiries may be directed to legal counsel." I sent out the first batch on the 15th of the month. By the 17th, chaos erupted. I'd parked my truck near the foot of the ridge that morning just to watch. At 7:06 a.m., a silver Mercedes belonging to HOA treasurer Elaine Bryson rolled past the camera station. It slowed briefly, probably reacting to the discreet signage I'd installed the night before. "Notice, you are now entering privately managed roadway." She drove on. 43 minutes later, she emailed Ridgeback Transit's listed address. "There must be some mistake. I live here. I don't need to pay to access my own home," I responded within the hour. "We appreciate your concern." However, as confirmed by county documentation and parcel zoning maps, Ridgeback Access Corridor is not public infrastructure. It intersects private land now under commercial management. Continuous use without agreement constitutes trespass. I attached her license plate log and time-stamped entries from the past 3 days. She never replied again, but the floodgates had opened. By noon, 27 emails had landed in my inbox. By the next day, it was 72, some polite, most angry, some absurd. Like the HOA board secretary who threatened to personally call the mayor and have your operation shut down. I replied to her with a link to the Secretary of State's business database, showing Ridgeback's active license. I also attached a video clip of her vehicle entering and exiting the corridor 15 times that month. "Thank you for your patronage," I concluded. And then came the emergency HOA meeting. Held virtually, of course, because none of them wanted to face the possibility of being recorded at my gate. I joined in anonymously, just to listen. Carl was fuming. "This is extortion," he shouted. "He can't just start charging us for access. We built that road." Another board member asked quietly, "But is he allowed to do this?" Carl hesitated. "We're reviewing options," I grinned, because I knew exactly what they were reviewing. The same fraudulent paperwork I'd already compiled. The same zoning lies they'd used to screw over previous landowners. Now those documents were turning to ash in their hands. Every piece of leverage they thought they had was gone, because the road wasn't theirs. It never was. The HOA made a fatal assumption that they could develop without resistance, take land without consent, and bury opposition under legal fog. But I had turned their violation into vision. And vision comes with strategy. I started reinvesting the revenue into the corridor itself. Gravel reinforcement, erosion mats, reflective signage, even a snowplow rental for the coming winter. Every improvement was logged, photographed, and stored as proof of private maintenance. And every time I made an upgrade, I emailed the HOA with an itemized statement. "This month's toll revenue funded shoulder drainage and grading. Your support improves community access." I was rubbing it in without saying a word. It was beautiful. And still, they kept driving. They had no choice. My road was the fastest route to the upper ridge, the only one that didn't require a 3.6-mile detour through uneven terrain. I tracked traffic patterns. On average, each resident passed through my gate 37 times per month. Multiply that by 83 households, and the numbers added up fast. Ridgeback Transit posted its first 18-0 in revenue within 40 days, and that was just the beginning. But I didn't stop there. I added layers of legal armor. An indemnity clause for Ridgeback Transit, shielding it from liability due to user error. An automatic lien clause for unpaid tolls over 90 days. A provision stating that failure to comply with posted terms of access would be considered a violation of state trespass laws under Section 201.7. And a payment portal so simple even the angriest HOA member could log in and settle their balance with 3 clicks. This wasn't revenge anymore. This was enterprise. And the beauty of it? They'd built it for me. They graded the trail. They cleared the trees. They even installed culverts for drainage. All I did was claim what was legally mine and wrap it in a ribbon of automation and digital billing. The road they carved through my sanctuary was now a cash cow grazing in my name. And every time Karen or Carl or Elaine drove to the store, picked up dry cleaning, or dropped off kids at school, they donated another few dollars to my growing operation. They called it theft. I called it ROI. My lawyer called it airtight. And the county? They called it a creative resolution to a private zoning discrepancy. No one was coming to save the HOA. No one could. Because I had done it all by the book. I didn't scream. I didn't protest. I just built a better trap. And they stepped into it willingly, headlights first. It didn't take long for the HOA to go from stunned to scorched earth. The invoices had barely been out for 60 days before the first lawsuit landed on Elliot's desk, filed by none other than the HOA itself, claiming that Ridgeback Transit Solutions was illegally extorting residents through fraudulent use of a non-easement access route. The irony was delicious. They were suing me over a road they built illegally through land they never owned, demanding free access to private property they'd already violated. Elliot read the filing and let out a laugh that didn't reach his eyes. They're throwing a Hail Mary, Mark. They know they don't have a case. They're hoping to scare you into backing off. I didn't blink. Then let's give them a reason to be scared. While Elliot prepared our formal response, a counterclaim for trespass, damages, and recovery of maintenance costs, I continued improving the toll system. I reinforced the ground-level sensors with seismic triggers, so even if a vehicle's plates were covered, their entry and exit were still logged. I upgraded the backup power to solar with battery redundancies. And I added high-resolution night vision cameras to catch anyone who thought they could sneak through after dark. I wasn't defending a road anymore. I was defending a business, and I treated it with military-grade precision. But the HOA didn't take the legal loss lightly. When their emergency injunction failed, rejected by the county judge within 40 minutes of being filed, they pivoted to something uglier: narrative warfare. Flyers began appearing in mailboxes and pinned to community boards. Don't pay the toll. Stand against corporate greed. Followed by bold accusations that Ridgeback Transit was part of a foreign-owned enterprise actively undermining property values. Karen Perkins, the new mouthpiece for the board since Carl started lawyering up, held a live-streamed town hall on Facebook where she called me a rogue land baron and claimed I was weaponizing infrastructure to hold our families hostage. The comments section exploded, mostly with laughter from outside viewers who had seen my side of the story go viral the week before. A drone video of the illegal road construction had been shared on a legal transparency subreddit and racked up 1.4 million views in 3 days. The caption, "O builds road on private land. Owner turns it into toll highway. Welcome to capitalism." The HOA wasn't just losing, they were becoming a meme. But memes don't stop angry people from being stupid. The sabotage attempts started small. Someone spray-painted "Road Thief" on one of my sensor boxes. Another night, 2 teenagers, probably the kids of some fuming board member, tried to toss a tire spike strip across the asphalt. My cameras caught everything. Plates, faces, timestamps. I sent the footage to the sheriff with a note. documented vandalism of commercial property. But the real kicker came when Vice President of the HOA, Lawrence Briggs, buttoned up, always smirking. Lexus, driving Lawrence, tried to play cowboy. I don't know what possessed him. Maybe it was the mounting late fees on his unpaid toll account. Maybe it was the fact that Ridgeback Transit had just placed a lien on his second home. Or maybe it was just the sheer shame of knowing his wife had been stopped at the gate 2 days earlier when her account flagged her as delinquent. Whatever the cause, Lawrence decided he was going to solve the problem the American way, by slamming his 65 Zero luxury SUV straight through the automated toll gate, except there was no gate arm. Just reinforced steel bollards that rose out of the ground with hydraulic pressure when tampering was detected. And they detected it. The moment he tried to bypass the system by driving around the camera zone, the motion sensors triggered. The bollards rose. His Lexus hit them head-on at 34 miles per hour. Airbags deployed. Front bumper shattered. Radiator split open like a soda can. And the best part? Every second was recorded in glorious 4K, including the part where Lawrence stumbled out, clutching his neck and screaming that I had booby-trapped a public road. By the time deputies arrived, I was already on site with printed footage, 3 signed county documents proving the road's private status, and the site's insurance policy that covered only Ridgeback Transit and authorized users. Lawrence was ticketed for reckless endangerment, destruction of private property, and attempted fraud. The sheriff, a steady man with a fondness for facts, took one look at my setup and said, "Honestly, Mr. Ellis, I wish our public roads were this well documented." And yet the HOA kept coming. When the lawsuits failed and the smear campaigns backfired, they resorted to pure desperation. Karen filed a restraining order against me, claiming my toll system was a form of harassment. The judge laughed her out of court. Another board member tried to petition the county to forcibly revoke my commercial zoning. But the zoning commission reviewed my application history and responded with a firm no, stating my use of the land was both legally compliant and exemplary in management. That part got published in the county's official newsletter. I framed it. And when Carl Densley himself finally emerged from whatever legal bunker he'd been hiding in, he tried one last Hail Mary. "If you agree to stop tolling our residents, we'll drop all pending suits." I stared at him across a mediation table. "You bulldozed through my land, lied to the county, falsified easements, then tried to bankrupt me for defending what's mine." I leaned in slightly. "And now you want mercy?" Carl didn't respond. He didn't need to. His face said it all. He knew it was over. The HOA had blown every advantage they thought they had, and each failure just made my case stronger. The final nail came 2 weeks later, when a county inspector performed an unannounced site visit to confirm an HOA complaint about hazardous driving conditions caused by private toll devices. What he found instead was a pristine gravel corridor with drainage, berms, reflective paint, environmentally sound runoff channels, and weekly maintenance logs verified by time-stamped drone footage. He submitted a report to the court as part of the ongoing HOA suit. His conclusion: Ridgeback Transit Solutions has demonstrated a higher standard of care and environmental compliance than any comparable access road in this region. The property in question is definitively private and maintained within all required legal parameters. That report hit the docket at 10:13 a.m. By 3:47 p.m., the court dismissed the HOA's remaining claims with prejudice. That meant they couldn't refile. They couldn't appeal. It was done. Over. The judge even ordered them to pay legal fees and punitive damages for attempted sabotage and defamation. Their total bill, $94,320, payable to Ridgeback Transit. And when they tried to protest the amount, the judge merely said, "You built your own road to ruin. Now drive it." I walked out of that courtroom and didn't say a word, didn't gloat, didn't smile. I just went home, brewed a strong pot of coffee, and sat on my porch overlooking the toll corridor. Cars passed below, dutifully slowing as the plate readers blinked and logged each one. A steady rhythm of revenue, built on arrogance, fraud, and asphalt. They thought they could break me. They didn't realize I was never playing defense. I was just building my case. And now, they paid me for the privilege of remembering it. It all came to a head on a rainy Thursday morning, 3 months after the judge had crushed the last of the HOA's lawsuits into dust. The wind howled over the ridge like it was clearing the mountain of every lie that had ever been etched into the dirt. I stood at the rear of the county boardroom, a thick folder under my arm, the final version of a document I had spent months assembling. Not a lawsuit, not a complaint. A formal motion to open a fraud investigation into the Ridgeview Homeowners Association, citing tax evasion, illegal land seizure, falsified notary filings, and use of HOA funds for personal gain. Elliot walked beside me, silent, focused. Ahead of us sat 5 board members, elected officials who, for the most part, hated HOA politics as much as I did, but had never had the ammunition or the clarity to do anything about it. That changed the moment we dropped the folder on their desk. Inside was everything: the zoning maps, original parcel deeds, high-resolution video stills of board members signing illegal approvals, receipts of forged transactions, and even a whistleblower affidavit from a former HOA treasurer who had quietly contacted me after the toll battle ended. Her statement alone implicated Carl Densley and Lawrence Briggs in knowingly funneling road construction money through personal development firms, then lying to residents about maintenance assessments. I'd also found multiple HOA meetings where official minutes had been altered post facto to create false consensus on projects that were never voted on. In short, racketeering. Over land. In suburban America. The county board listened without interrupting. Halfway through, one of them asked me, "And what's your interest in this matter now, Mr. Ellis, aside from, justice?" I didn't blink. I own the road they built on. And now they're trying to spin that into a grievance. But I didn't come here to argue tolls. I came to expose theft. Elliot passed them a summary of federal statutes regarding misappropriation of funds in a civic capacity. "This isn't just unethical," he added. "It's criminal, and we believe it warrants escalation." Within a week, the board voted unanimously to forward the findings to the state attorney general and the regional office of the FBI. That same month, subpoenas were issued to the Ridgeview HOA for financial records, zoning communication logs, and tax filings going back 10 years. And the cherry on top? When the feds started investigating, they found that Ridgeview HOA hadn't just committed fraud, they'd been double booking community funds, billing residents for improvements that were never completed, then reporting those as losses to the IRS. Wire fraud, tax evasion, document forgery, a trifecta of felony-level infractions. The hammer dropped fast. Within 4 months, the Ridgeview HOA was formally dissolved under state order. All assets were frozen. Multiple board members were indicted, and the real estate licenses of 3 former presidents were suspended pending further investigation. Carl Densley was slapped with a $250,000 civil penalty and ordered to surrender control of every HOA-controlled parcel still under his name. Lawrence Briggs settled privately, signing over both his homes and liquidating shares in the development firm his wife had inherited from her father. Karen Perkins disappeared. Rumor was she fled the state. Didn't matter. Her name was on enough documents to haunt her in every background check for the next 2 decades. The court appointed a dissolution officer to formally shut down all HOA operations. The private patrols were disbanded. The security contract was voided. And that ridiculous community regulation pamphlet they used to stuff in every resident's mailbox? Banned from further distribution under the settlement terms. Ridgeview was no longer a homeowners association. It was just a neighborhood now. A broken one, sure, but free. As part of the agreement, Ridgeback Transit was granted permanent, exclusive access rights to the Ridgeback Access Corridor. Not just tolerated, recognized in county records as the official managing entity of what was once illegally paved road. My LLC now owned the only viable entry point to the Upper Ridge, and with no HOA left to oppose it, every homeowner became a customer by default. I rolled out a new tiered subscription model, $49.99 monthly for basic access, $89.99 for commercial licenses, and a lifetime buyout option for $750. A few residents tried to resist at first. They threatened to call lawyers, appeal to state boards, even rally the community. But by now, they knew better. Ridgeback Transit wasn't some half-baked scam. It was a legally fortified operation with redundant documentation and a spotless audit history, and I wasn't some angry loner in a cabin. I was a landowner, an entrepreneur, and the only thing standing between them and a 3.6-mile detour over a gravel county road filled with potholes. Within the first 60 days, 76% of residents had signed up for the automated pass system. The rest paid per trip. By month 4, we were pulling in over $21,000 a month in clean, registered revenue. I reinvested it back into the road, paving it, lighting it, adding seasonal salt gritting in winter and automated drainage monitoring for the spring runoff. And I made one more improvement, just for myself. On the ridge above the toll route, I built a second deck on my cabin. A small cedarwood extension with a wide, low railing, angled perfectly to overlook the entrance point. I set up a weatherproof espresso machine, 2 chairs, and a small outdoor speaker. Every morning, I brewed a fresh cup of Colombian roast, walked outside, and watched them drive through. Like clockwork, the people who once sneered at me in HOA meetings, the ones who called me anti-community and paranoid, they passed under the Ridgeback reader one by one, SUVs, sedans, minivans, paying for the privilege of crossing a road their arrogance had built. Some scowled at the camera. Some waved, awkwardly trying to appear civil. A few even left apology notes in my mailbox. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. My bank account did the talking. And when the first check arrived from the county, payment for a public works partnership deal they offered me to integrate Ridgeback into their emergency response map, I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my mug. I was now being paid by the same government the HOA had tried to manipulate. It was perfect, complete, controlled. An empire of quiet dominance rising from the bones of petty tyrants and fraudulent signatures. The HOA had been built on control, fear, and artificial power. I replaced it with transparency, structure, and consequence. The toll road didn't just make money. It made a point. It proved that law, when wielded with precision, could be sharper than vengeance. I didn't need revenge. I had ownership. Every sunrise on that mountain, I was reminded of the simple truth. They tried to take my peace. Instead, they handed me power. They paved their own trap. I just built the gate. And now, they pay for every mile.